and welcome to the Square's one and only radio station. I'm your host. Today is Friday, May 4th, 2007, and we are in Big Bear Lake, California, with a high of 52 and a low of 36. There will be no rain today. We are purposefully avoiding the central United States region because later today is the beginning of a tornado outbreak that will last till the 6th. There will be 132 confirmed tornadoes, including one EF5 that will have wind speeds reaching 205 miles per hour. There's no need to worry though, as we are plenty far away. So let's get to the show. Raising young is an act that takes a lot of time and energy, but it's pretty important for the survival of the species. Animals go about this in a number of different ways, but one option is to just have someone else do all the work. This is what we call brood parasitism. It's a specific kind of parasitism where the parasite manipulates the host into raising the parasite's young as their own. This can either be intraspecific, the host and the parasite being the same species, or interspecific, the host and the parasite being different species. Along with that, these parasites can be obligate or facultative brood parasites, meaning they either solely rely on brood parasitism to raise their young, obligate, or can be brood parasites but do not have to be, facultative. Brood parasitism has been observed in birds, fish, insects, and fae. Birds tend to be the most discussed when it comes to brood parasitism. There are 234 known bird species that are intraspecific brood parasites. Birds that are both obligate and interspecific brood parasites make up around 1% of birds. And most of these are specialists, parasitizing one species or a small group of closely related species. Most cowbirds, though, are generalists. Brown-headed cowbirds, for example, lay their eggs in the nests of over 200 different host species. The common cuckoo is a very interesting case of specialization. They have been recorded laying eggs in over 100 different host species, but they are not generalists. Instead, within the common cuckoo, there are groups of females that favor specific species and lay eggs similar to that species' eggs. The common cuckoo is also famous for the fact that the cuckoo egg will hatch before the host eggs, and the chick will hurl the other eggs from the nest, meaning that the parents can put all their energy into the baby cuckoo. It's not just birds, though. Remember, some insects are brood parasites too. For example, cuckoo bees lay their eggs in the host's nests, and when they hatch, the larvae will eat the food gathered by the host. Okay, I wasn't entirely honest. Since the host isn't feeding the parasite directly, and instead the parasite is simply stealing, it is more accurate to refer to this as kleptoparasitism. To briefly touch on kleptoparasitism, it is when an animal steals food from another animal, like how gulls will steal your french fries. An actual example of brood parasitism among insects is Nephanda fusca. This butterfly parasitizes Japanese carpenter ants. In its last stage of development as a caterpillar, it will start releasing chemicals that trick the host worker ants into adopting it and raising it as their own larva for around 10 months, where the caterpillar will then pupate. One of the only known brood parasites among fish is Cynodontis multiplicatus, also known as the cuckoo catfish. Lake Tanganyika is the home of this fish, as well as the host species, cichlids. Cichlids raise their young by mouth brooding. In other words, they raise their young by carrying them in their mouth, both as eggs and for a while after they hatch. What the cuckoo catfish will do is find the cichlid's clutch of eggs and put its eggs with the clutch, so that when the cichlid puts the eggs into its mouth, the cuckoo catfish's eggs are in there too. The cuckoo catfish's eggs will also hatch first, giving the catfish a head start on growing up, so that when the cichlids hatch, the baby catfish can eat them all up, with the host parent being none the wiser. Of course, the cichlid does try to identify and avoid the catfish's eggs, but this runs the risk of rejecting its own eggs, so there has to be a balance with how cautious it can be. Now, on to the supernatural. To call a changeling a brood parasite isn't entirely accurate, since the term changeling refers to a substitute left behind when a supernatural being kidnaps a human. This can be an adult, but this occurs more often with babies. Sometimes the substitute left behind is a log enchanted to look like the kidnapped human that then appears to become sick and die. Some substitutes are not the parasite's young, but instead they're elderly, sent to live out their final days cared for by a human family. But none of these fall under brood parasitism, so why do I mention changelings? That's because there are fairies whose babies do need human milk to grow, so these are brood parasites. Unlike most brood parasites, though, if the host discovers the parasite, it can cast the parasite into the woods and have the host's actual baby returned to them. As we previously discussed, most of the time the host offspring are not kidnapped and raised by the parasite, and many times the host's offspring is killed. A changeling can be identified by its incorrect proportions, deformities, lack of growth, or drastic change in personality. However, just like cichlids, being overly cautious can lead the host to reject their own children, especially since these symptoms are also similar to many very human diseases and disabilities. In the modern age, reports of changelings are very rare. Whether this is because it's happening far less or the substitutes have gotten better is impossible to say. The restaurant owner made this request, and it was a fun topic. Nature is strange and interesting to discuss. I will get more into the interesting occurrences in nature in later broadcasts. For now, though, let's return to hear the conclusion of the adventures of our hero, Beowulf. When Beowulf returned to his homeland, he told Higelac the story of how he defeated Grendel, the monster attacking the Danes, and Grendel's mother. Higelac was impressed and gifted Beowulf the gold-adorned sword his father had given him, a great mead hall, and 1,000 miles of some of the richest lands. Years passed, and Higelac was killed in battle, and his last living son was killed later when the Swedes invaded the nation. This left Beowulf as ruler of the Geats, and he ruled for 50 years with little conflict, till someone stole a cup. In the countryside, a man ran towards the headlands. He was a slave who had fled from his master's flogging, as he desperately tried to figure out what to do next. He found the entrance to a hidden cave. Inside, he found himself in an ancient burial mound, and when he traveled deeper in, he found himself in front of a vast hoard of treasure. Piles of gold, gems, finely crafted wall hangings, golden cups, helmets, golden armbands. What he didn't know was this treasure had been guarded by a dragon for 300 years. What he did know was that the dragon was still on the pile of treasure, fast asleep. He spotted a single golden cup sitting slightly away from the pile. It would be pretty easy to take. If he gave that to his master, he would be forgiven. He looked back at the dragon. There was no way it would notice the absence of a singular cup amongst this vast wealth, right? After the man had made off with the cup, the dragon awoke, smelled the air, and caught the scent of an intruder. It looked around and spotted a set of fresh footprints. This made the dragon angry. How dare someone trespass into its glorious hoard? The dragon carefully checked over the hoard it had spent 300 years studying and saw that a cup was gone. Now furious that someone dared to steal, the dragon searched the cave top to bottom just in case the thief was still there. But the man was long gone. The dragon sat on its pile of treasure while its anger grew and grew, until finally the sun began to set, and the dragon flew forth from the cave with a burst of fire. It flew over the countryside, burning down buildings and every living thing it came across. It kept this up all through the night. When the sun rose, it returned to its hidden cave, not worrying about the many who witnessed its destruction. It believed that none would be able to find the cave, and if they did, they would not be strong enough to even harm it. This went on till finally Beowulf heard word of it. He was told that among the damage, his own mead hall had been burned down. But the worst news was that the coastal land had been destroyed, including the fortress that served as a stronghold to the people. He was devastated to hear of this, so he planned his vengeance. Despite his old age, he did not fear fighting the creature, but a lindenwood shield would be useless against dragon fire, so he ordered that a shield be made from solid iron. He gathered a troop of 11 fighters to pursue the terrible creature with him. Beowulf also identified the cause of the dragon's rage and found the man who stole the cup. He forced the man to guide him and his men to the dragon's lair. When they came to the lair, they found the dragon asleep, so they gathered outside to discuss the plan of attack, where Beowulf gave his speech before his final battle.
Now, I may be an old man, but that doesn't prevent me from being eager to risk my life to save my people and to gain glory for slaying such a fearsome beast. I wish I could grapple this creature like I grappled Grendel all those years ago. But this dragon has fire and venom. Instead, I will go in with my shield, and I swear that I will not fall back a single step as I fight this creature. I ask you, brave warriors, to wait out here while I fight, for I will fight it by myself or die trying. I trust that should I fail, you shall avenge me."
Beowulf checked over his helmet and mail shirt before grabbing his iron shield and entering with no doubt that he was strong enough to kill this dragon. He came into the large open area before the room that housed the great treasure and the dragon. Beowulf let out a mighty cry, and in response, the ground rumbled and the temperature rose as the dragon awoke. It came out to face Beowulf. The two of them felt fear wash over them, knowing that the being before them was incredibly deadly, but neither hesitated as they went in for the attack. The dragon uncoiled like a snake going for the strike as it covered its body in flames. Beowulf managed to block the attack with his shield, but the heat was already causing the shield to warp. He knew that the shield would not protect him for long, so he struck the creature's back as it retreated. He needed the strike to hit true, but when the sword collided with the bony scales, it simply bounced off. His shield was failing him, and the dragon was getting ready to attack him again. This time, when the two collided, Beowulf found himself engulfed in flames and cried out in pain. Hearing Beowulf get hurt alarmed the warriors, causing them to run for the forest, all but one. Beowulf watched as the king was tormented by the fire and remembered the many kind things he had done for his family. He pledged his faith to Beowulf in the great hall and promised to repay the king's gifts of armors and swords if he ever needed his help. He chose him and the other soldiers because he believed that they had the strength and the bravery needed in battle. This was the time the king needed him. He couldn't be like the cowards who ran for the trees. He would rather burn to death than leave his lord without even trying to fight the serpent. After all Beowulf had done, he couldn't let him die like this. Beowulf gathered his sword, his shield, and his courage and ran into the fight beside his king. Beowulf shouted to Beowulf despite the smoke. "My lord, Beowulf, you used to say that your fighting spirit would never fail you as long as you lived. Now, defend yourself with all your strength, for I am here to support you in any way that I can." The dragon lunged at Beowulf, and while Beowulf deflected the hit with his shield, the shield shattered into burning splinters. He managed to make it to Beowulf and hide with him behind what was left of the iron shield. Beowulf also took the opportunity to slam his sword down on the dragon's head, strong enough to snap the blade in two, but not strong enough to stop the dragon. The dragon surged forward once more, and this time, the shield did not stop it as it bit down on Beowulf's neck. Beowulf went down, blood pouring from his wound. Beowulf knew he had to help his king. He swung his sword as his hand burned from the fire and hit the dragon's neck. It wasn't deep enough to kill, but it was deep enough to cause the stream of fire to weaken. It also gave Beowulf the chance to get to his feet and pull out his dagger. He used the lower angle of being on the ground to his advantage to plunge his blade straight into the dragon's belly and rip it open. And the dragon fell to the floor, dead. Beowulf felt the rush of relief. They had done it. Together they had managed to slay a dragon, a beast that could breathe fire and had venomous fangs. It had venomous fangs! He turned to Beowulf to find that the wound was swelling and burning with venom. Beowulf guided Beowulf to sit against one of the walls. Beowulf, his king, was dying a painful death right in front of his eyes. All he could do was try to save him. So Beowulf took off his helmet and began to wash the king's wound. "You know, if I had a son, this would be the time to give him all my war gear." Beowulf tried not to sound like a dying man to comfort the man who had fought beside him, but he was dying, and they both knew it. "For 50 years, I ruled this country. No nation dared to attack or threaten me. All my life, I stood my ground, defended my people, never started a fight, and never swore a false oath. I'm proud of my life. Please, go find the dragon's treasure and bring me some.
I wish to see that through my death I have left my people riches so that they may have a better life.
Beowulf did not want to leave his king's side for even a moment, but he knew he had to fulfill his final wishes. He ran through the cavern as fast as he could. When he found the treasure, he gathered an armful and anxiously ran back. He could only hope that Beowulf would still be alive when he got there. He was still alive when he got back, but they both knew it wouldn't be for much longer. Beowulf didn't know what else to do, so while Beowulf looked at the riches, Beowulf returned to washing the blood off his king's wound.
Bless these treasures that I am thankful to have won for my people. I hope they are of use to them.
Beowulf's breath shuddered.
My time is near. Beowulf, have them build me a funeral pyre by the sea, and bury me in a burial mound that can be seen by passing ships. Finally, Beowulf, take these.
Beowulf struggled, but still managed to take off his golden collar, gilded helmet, arm ring, and war shirt.
From the bravery you have shown today, I know that you will use these well. I also know that you are my last living relative. So I know that my nation will be in good hands. Many good men have fallen before me, and now it is my time to go.
With that, the king had said his final words and taken his final breath. As Beowulf tried to splash water on the king's face, hoping, desperately, that he would wake up once more, the 10 cowards who ran into the woods approached him, seeing the battle was over. When Beowulf saw them, he stood and faced them with a heart full of rage.
Tell me, who gave you the gear that you have been wearing? The finest gear he could find, wasted on you? Our bold king had no support from you and still managed to kill a dragon with his own hands. I could do little to save his life, but I tried. If you were there to defend him, he would still be alive. But when our king was in crisis, you lot just ran.
The men looked ashamed, but Beowulf was not done.
You will no longer be given golden treasure. You will no longer be given gear. You will be stripped of all rights to your lands. You will be exiled. Foreign nobles shall learn how you fled like cowards. This will be your punishment for being such disgraces. And if you were good men, you would understand that this punishment is worse than death.
So, yeah, Beowulf is dead. Wow. Alright. Oh, right. Beowulf carried out Beowulf's final wishes and had his funeral pyre by the sea. The nation was upset at the passing of their great king. The story goes on to describe the funeral, but the boss doesn't really want me to talk about funerals. So that concludes Beowulf. I shouldn't be so upset about this. The toy shop owner who requested the story left a note about the request. We have lost thousands upon thousands of stories to the march of time. And Beowulf is not only a story we could have lost, but also a story where we know about the specific event that almost caused the story to be lost forever. In 1731, the only surviving manuscript containing the story of Beowulf was part of a book collection housed in a building that caught fire. The fire destroyed a quarter of the collection. Beowulf only survived because people were throwing books out the window in an effort to save the books, and it didn't come out unscathed. It was badly scorched on the edges. Not only did the story survive fire, but also survived centuries of existence. Estimated to be written between 650 and 1025, so much time has passed that even though the poem is in English, the language has changed so much that you need a translator. But here it is, the story of Beowulf, still being told. Wow, how you put it like that? It's nice to hear the story then. Thank you for letting us know that and letting us continue to remember Beowulf's story. Once again, I have to thank everyone who has submitted their requests, but unfortunately there's one person who still hasn't submitted a request. I don't want to name any names, so please submit a request very soon. Until then, You'll hear from me again yesterday, today, tomorrow, and the rest of your lives. Goodbye!